I've talked about this with lots of junior designers, and to know that imposter syndrome is okay. Everyone gets it at all different levels. It's not just folks, applying for their first positions and breaking into a new field. It's everyone. It's, going in, moving up a level within the same company. You can have those feelings. You can have those feelings switching between companies, maybe, popping into a new role in a new company. Uh, and that's okay. Go out and get resources and become more educated in that area and build confidence and talk to other folks and learn. Uh, that's okay. Everyone has imposter syndrome at all levels, even the executives.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm talking to Sarah Donaldson, the lead product designer at Fullscript. Sarah shares how she got into the design industry by accident, what is the difference between an intermediate and a senior designer, and how you can start positioning yourself as one. We also talk about what makes recruiters ignore candidates just because of their job application, and we discuss Sarah's expectations of portfolio, resume, interviewing, and asking good questions in the interview. And lastly, we touch on the topic of DesignOps and what makes a good design lead. Enjoy. Hey, Sarah. Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you, Kirill. How are you?
I'm freezing cold, but other than that, pretty good. And I'm super. I was super excited to having this conversation with you. It's been a long time. We've been trying to set something up, and I'm sure you'll bring a lot of value to the audience and share a lot of valuable insights.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I know we've talked about this a few years ago, and so I've been building anticipation and nerves.
And getting more and more experience.
Yeah. Things have changed a little bit since then.
Yeah. So I'll ask a few more questions on, I guess, the comparison between different environments and like different types of companies from your experience, and yeah, how do those compare? Like, what was your maybe takeaways from those experiences? So this is, yeah, one of the most exciting parts of your profile is that you have a very broad and diverse set of experiences in many different roles and many different companies, and yeah, I'm sure you've learned a lot from these experiences.
Yes, yeah, I've done it a couple of different ways. I've had awesome experiences working with a lot of startups. Some startups, from day one, employee number three, group of 10 of us, to, larger startups around, the 40, 50 person mark. As well as, previously before I was a graphic designer, so I worked with a lot of graphic design clients. Uh, Always more interested in the web and digital side of it,
Mm.
and so that was a natural progression into UX and product design for myself. But with all of these experiences, they really brought, different perspectives to working with different types of users, which is so interesting. I mean, it's amazing to be able to hop into a new project and learn about a totally different user type than you were working with previously. But all of these different size companies, the process within them is very the same. Uh, it just depends on the size. You have different silos and things of that sort. So currently, I'm with a company. There's about 600 of us at Fullscript. The design team right now, I believe by March will be about 13 designers, and so different problems come with about 13 designers rather than just myself working at a startup or myself and two or three other designers, and so I'm navigating that change right now.
Yeah, and I've had experience also working on small teams and larger teams, and definitely different types of mechanisms that you need to introduce and work out when you have bigger teams. That's, yeah, there are some pros and cons to that, to different sizes of teams for sure.
Yes, definitely.
So you mentioned what you do today. So you work at Fullscript and the size of the team, and maybe you can start from the early days. What really caused you to get interested and start in this industry, and how did you do it? How did you get into the industry?
Yes, yeah. So as I mentioned, my background was in graphic design. During my degree, I was always interested in the digital side of it, and so I loved coding. I loved building websites. At that time, web design. Uh, for my end project, I created an app without even really understanding what the term UX was at that time. This is about 10 or so years ago. Uh, and then I was cutting my teeth, being a contract graphic designer and working with clients. And so during that stage, I really understood how to manage multiple projects, you know, uh, work with clients, understand work on a lot of those soft skills, which I found really valuable. Work on timelines, deadlines, expectation management. And then I moved from Victoria to Kelowna. I joined this startup. It was very scrappy. I was doing the web design. They had about 16 websites that I would, designed and did light front end development at that point. And one time got called into the head office and they said, "Okay, we let go of our UX designer. Now you can do this job." What? I dabbled around in it, but I really didn't understand what it was to we had 16 apps at that point. They were all fairly similar, but branded with a different visual style, but same feature set. And so I said, okay, let's do this. This is how you learn. This is why you work at startups. Is try new things and cut your teeth. And so I dove in headfirst, and it was the most amazing and painful experience ever because you're doing things that you just don't know. You're not the expert. You don't know all the answers. Extreme imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Developers asking, saying, "Why is this the best idea? Why would you put this here?" Everyone has ideas, and so you're trying to defend your ideas. At that point, I wasn't familiar with user research. I didn't have those tools and skills. And so it was really myself against everyone else. And so I was trying to read and research as much as I could, but the resources out there weren't like they are today. This was 8 years ago. Um, and so I decided to take a boot camp and learn and see where I could fill the gaps on things I didn't know, and that really gave me the confidence to say I don't know. Let
Hmm.
me go find out. I need to send a survey. I need to talk to some customers, talk to some users, do some testing, uh, and that totally changed everything for me. It was graphic design was so subjective. It was your opinion versus the client's. Uh,
Yeah.
and this was a whole new world where I just fell in love with data and having answers and being able to explain why and being okay being wrong and trying new things. And so I fell in love with the profession there and went and worked at a handful of different startups that all ran their course for different reasons. But I wouldn't change the path.
Mm. And I've heard about the, I guess, the pains and the, oh, like
Yeah.
going through startup world and experiencing working at a startup. I had some of that experience myself, and it's definitely, it feels like it's first of all, maybe it's, again, we're generalizing here because different startups will have different leadership and different processes and experiences. But I think the pattern here is that, like, yeah, lots of startups would be less structured. They would be more random sometimes and just like dealing with fires and trying to change the wheels. I think there's like a metaphor, like changing the wheels while the car is moving. It's like, I think it's, yeah, completely resonates with my experience with startups. But I think you're totally right, and I had the same experiences, same observations, that when you go through this, when kind of people, when you're being thrown into something that you don't know, especially when you change teams, change companies, change different products you work on, every next change, every next really this, it's almost like a shock that you are thrown into this new area, but it's almost also it's a much more accelerated growth phase, and at least it has been in my experience. So I see these changes as a huge benefit of really faster learning, faster growing relationships and network, and also acquiring some new skills, and learning from other team members, right? Who maybe designers themselves, maybe product managers, maybe even like leadership, depends on whom you interact with, and engineering. So for me, like my experience in startup was really, I learned so many again from other roles that weren't necessarily design related, but really understanding how business works, what really happens in QA world, what happens like in engineering, all the challenges with sales, what drives them. It's really very, I think it's a good school to go through. And obviously different startups may have different um, combination of like pros and cons, and maybe not every startup will give you enough learning, like the same amount of learnings as the others. But yeah, I think there is lots of value in working in this kind of more agile and more fast paced environments, even if it's not maybe like for the whole life, that you would want to stick with it in the same pace. But yeah, I'm sure that there, yeah, I agree, there are lots of value there.
Yeah, I always find it interesting. Startups, a lot of folks think of startups as being folks very early in their career, excited about something banding together and making something happen. In a lot of
Hackers, yeah.
cases, yeah, that's true. But I've actually worked at startups with folks that have been in the industry for 15, 20 years, worked at Disney, EA, lots of large companies, and wanted the change of to work at a startup and have more flexibility and be scrappy. And so there's opportunity to learn from so many people in either a startup or a larger corporation.
Yeah. And I was also, I wanted to ask another question. So you mentioned that you were the sole designer on a team, and probably multiple times, right? I wonder if you have any maybe takeaways or what you found worked for you, because we just talked about your particular experience, right, and your path. What worked for you to help you build trust with other team members and leadership, especially with smaller companies when you work more with senior leadership, when you were just the single person on the team, and when the team and the project partners maybe were not as educated on the value and on really build, like basically trusting that you can do the job. So how maybe any tips that you could share there?
Yeah, that's actually kind of how I I found. We'll talk about it shortly about design operations, but that's how I fell in love with the design process. Was Kelowna was at the time very behind Vancouver in design thinking maturity and UX maturity within startups and company tech companies here, and so part of my job every place I went was educating everyone, the whole company, even right from the interview process. Ex- they probably had a template job description, and so I had to go in a little bit
Right.
further and actually educate the person I was interviewing with about, oh, it would actually work like this. And I love to be paired early on with the product manager and the tech lead right from the beginning, and validating our ideas and why user research is important. And uh, I always found the big aha moments were bringing, like, trying to get buy-in for user research, going away, doing it as fast as possible and bringing it back. That was the aha moment. People didn't really understand until they saw that that data. Oh, these pieces aren't working. This piece is really working for us. It's not just about our own opinions. Everyone thinks that they have the best idea, and then once they saw that data and saw the importance of it, it really changed. And once you have that buy-in, they're along for the ride. They're like, let's do this process correctly. How can we do this the right way? We clearly we're missing out on opportunity here. Let's do it right. And so I had a lot of success doing that, and I love going in and working with, product managers or product operations and really restructuring that process to involve design earlier in the process and be user centered, which is, yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, that's a very, very. I think that's super valuable takeaway and a tip on how to build trust quickly. So you go and do some guerrilla style, quick as soon as possible, so you can bring at least some data to show value and like almost like a spoiler alert of sorts, and then you get more support. You have more chances to get support to do the uh, more robust studies potentially, and more of them, and diving deeper into more parts of the product and experience. I think yeah, that's a very good tip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so thinking like especially for folks who are starting today, what may be the most notable lessons learned from your career that you're now kind of in retrospect thinking that you wish you knew this when you were starting, like that would help, would make your life easier to grow in your career and maybe to find the next job and yeah, and become a better designer.
Yeah. I think, I've talked about this with lots of junior designers, and to know that imposter syndrome is okay. Everyone gets it at all different levels. It's not just folks, applying for their first positions and breaking into a new field. It's everyone. It's, going in, moving up a level within the same company. You can have those feelings. You can have those feelings switching between companies, maybe, popping into a new role in a new company. Uh, and that's okay. Go out and get resources and become more educated in that area and build confidence and talk to other folks and learn. Uh, that's okay. Everyone has imposter syndrome at all levels, even the executives. So that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I completely agree, and almost every day kind of have sometimes this thought that, like, actually, especially when some methods or some parts of the process kind of you haven't been kind of practicing on like everyday basis. It's like, oh, actually, let me try to remember what I was doing 2 years ago on this front, and I was like, am I even good?
Yeah.
Yeah, you always doubt yourself. Yeah, maybe unless you're Kanye West, probably, who seems like fully immune to this feeling.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. I think that's definitely yeah, and I think it also like realizing that you cannot know everything, even after going through many years of experience, and that it's totally fine to um, understand this fact and accept it. I think it kind of also calms you down, at least for me. It's really kind of, yeah, like you're just a human, and you are great at some things, and maybe you are not as great on some other things, and that's fine because there are so many resources and tools that you can just go and learn it if you want, and practice more, and then how you get better. Yeah, yeah, we're all humans. That's kind of my conclusion here as well. Thinking about kind of from the other angle, like the other side of this market spectrum, like starters and entry levels and the senior folks. I know a lot of folks who are in this kind of intermediate phase, and again, it's all subjective, so it's really hard to put like any number of years or number of companies or number of, I don't know, even design methods that So it's such a challenging topic overall, like on a, I mean, different topic about the how do you really evaluate experience like this. But people who are trying to really get to this next step in their career, who are trying to get like from a designer to a senior level designer to a lead designer potentially, and they maybe don't know what exactly what it takes, right? And obviously in different companies, the expectations and the role definitions and the team structures could be so different. But I'm curious to hear from your experience and from your path, if you have observed some patterns, some repeating patterns of what really makes a senior or what makes a lead designer, because you've been a lead at several companies already. So, what really the skill set, maybe behaviors, maybe I don't know something else that differentiates between the designer and a senior lead designer?
Yeah. So let's that well, this is something we're talking a lot about at Fullscript. Majority of our team are in that intermediate phase, and either just about to move up into a senior role, or planning to. And so we're always very transparent on what are the next steps to move into the next level that you're interested in. And we're building out that that IC role right now,
Mm-hmm.
whether we're going to call it staff or principal, I don't know. uh, but at intermediate level, I usually find folks don't know whether they want to go the individual contributor route or the lead route. And so some of those skills to sharpen really depend which way you want to go. And so to go from an intermediate into a senior, we're looking at things like, exposure. Do they have exposure? Do most folks on the team know who they are and their area of expertise? And are they a person to go to for a specific thing? Also, things like, do they understand the big vision and the pieces? Not just does a product manager come and say, here's the solution, we need this icon. It's more than that. It's pulling back and being able to say, hey, what are we trying to achieve here? What are outcomes? Who are the personas that we're building for this for? Is this the ideal solution? And being able to raise that flag and say, hey, let's step back for a minute. That's starting to show more senior qualities when they can raise that flag and know when a solution is right, or whether they need to pull away the onion a little bit further. uh, Senior qualities are also being able to run projects on their own with minimal oversight from a more senior designer. They can um, hold together, whether I know Fullscript, we call it a three-headed monster. The product manager, the tech lead, and the designers, can they run in that grouping, in that pod, without a lot of oversight and help, and really drive the efforts there. The differences between a senior and a lead role, lead is more has more leadership qualities at that level. They're usually leading a few team members, whether rather than a senior might be helping out and helping mentor another designer. A lead would be being the person to help with all the areas of career development and coaching, and be there for the team and help them through different areas. We also take on different initiatives. I know we talked a little bit about design operations, and so a lead might have an area of specialties that they also contribute to.
Mm-hmm. So, but in that case, the reporting structure. Um, so the folks that the lead is mentoring and helps them to grow in their career, they're not necessarily reporting to that lead, or they are.
They are, yes,
Mm. So it's almost like a manager.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's the difference then between the manager and the lead?
A lead might be for a specific area. So Fullscript, it's for a specific area, say activation and retention,
Mm.
or specific area. That's one way of doing it. I know there's so many different ways. I've read how different places do it, but this would be for a specific area and a group of designers.
Hmm. So it's great that you have this support of the structure of like the mentoring and coaching practice within your team. But think of teams where there is not as much support, or at least not that people maybe don't know how to set it up. So if somebody is a like intermediate level and
Mm.
they do want to grow into this senior level, at least the next step, what maybe you can share any advice on how can they do it, like from their lens, and not wait until like they get an advice from a mentor.
Yeah. So taking on more projects, or not, I shouldn't say more projects. Don't take on more projects. Don't overload yourself. But have that initiative. Say, hey, I can help with that. I love to learn more about that. Put your hand up. Be open to, if someone's onboarding another designer, say, hey, I'd love to get them up to speed. Maybe that person has, more experience than you do, but you're the one onboarding them and teaching them where all the files are, what your process is. That really shows that you understand, the design position, and how to do things, and you can share how to, collaborate and teach someone else and mentor someone else. um, Also being able to, take on maybe smaller projects, but on your own, and show that you can take that on, and manage up, share updates often. This is what's happening, this is what's going on. um, you know and communicate cross functionally. I think that's a big thing that senior folks excel at, is they communicate more, and they communicate across different teams. And so that would be, those items would be great to see in an intermediate designer.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it resonates with what I've observed. Makes like a difference, at least even like the scope of ownership, and the way how folks are willing to take more initiative, and yeah, just gonna go and run on their own. And obviously, it's totally fine to ask for support from some team members and potentially even other designers on the team. But really being having this driving force in you, and obviously going through the proper process and communicating all the updates and everything, um, makes a difference. And it definitely changes the perception of this person within the team, that other team members think of their level, and what they think that they should be at, like maybe at next level or something. Totally makes sense. But maybe you could also compare, like, what's the main differences like in day to day between like a senior and a lead and a intermediate level designer. So kind of what's really, maybe as an example, right? Like a huge portion of a day, like 6 hours a day, is meetings for lead, as an example, right? Because they have team to manage, and they have more other of this kind of career conversations. So it's not really the craft itself, as like moving pixels in Figma or whatever tools they use. So maybe you can have like this, especially with your track of job titles and the scope of ownership of your jobs. What's really the pattern here? Like, what differences should they expect when they move to a senior or lead role?
Yes, so senior roles, I imagine usually, I mean, it's different depending on the company and the team makeup, but seniors, I do see them in more meetings than intermediate. They're in bigger meetings around, strategy, cross-functional meetings. They're also sometimes come in even early in the process before a project kicks off. Um, so yes, I do see them in more meetings, but they're still contributing, and they're still doing a lot of the work. And they're taking on meatier projects, maybe more complex projects, maybe, multiple user types, or, highly critical projects within the company, where it's, um, maybe not make or break. I don't want to say make or break projects, but, big high exposure projects. For lead designers, yes, we are not in Figma as much. That has pros and cons. My time mostly has been in Figma, in FigJam, thinking of, more around workshops, and design operations planning, and things of that sort, and more so giving time, giving feedback, working with designers one on ones, big strategy, with executives and things of that sort, and the directors, um, and then cross functionally working with other product leads. And so, yes, more meetings, but still try to keep it under 6 hours a day.
Yeah, that's I've heard as well. And even I see that the change like in tools, right? So like the more you have to communicate with others, especially cross-functional teams, the more the tools become email and like all the present like work online collaboration tools like FigJam or others similar ones, or some people still use like PowerPoint a lot, like for all those really trying to align different folks and different teams. And yeah, it's less about the design and really the craft like that you potentially started with, right? As a individual contributor. So think of from the because it's such a it's almost like a different job, right? Like when you're a lead with like reporters, people reporting to you, or manager, depends on the terminology for a company. There there are still lots of companies who think that the manager track is the natural progression for the career for folks, for every designer, regardless if they have this not tendency but skills necessary or desire actually and desire to lead the team, right? So, and it's kind of sad to see that sometimes like excellent individual contributors are being pushed just because there's like this almost kind of unspoken, not sometimes even unspoken expectation and assumption that if you don't grow and like don't change anything in your career within the company, that means you're stagnating, right? And then in most cases, like not in most cases, but very often the next step, expected step, is to go management route. And I've seen actually failed examples when people become unhappy. They do their job not in the best way because not every person has the skills or desire to lead a team, because it's completely different job from my point of view. So maybe you have like any. So if a person who is at this stage and they are almost like in this segue, not segue, but um, a decision point when they need to choose if they want to go the management route or I keep going the IC route if there is an option within the company. How can one really maybe get a better understanding of what would work for them before going into the management route? So if there's like any maybe I don't know activities or maybe tips, how can one really almost like trial run of sorts to really understand if it's your thing or not? Because it's theoretically it's really hard.
Yeah, yeah. It's a hard thing to know, like, it is, of which way you want to go and what's gonna be the best fit for you, and like you said, I also have seen folks go down the manager route, and they don't want to do it, and it isn't a good fit, and no one enjoys it, and it's not, fun if your not heart's not in it. You have to really love it because there's gonna be good days and there's gonna be bad days, and there's gonna be hard conversations, but
Hmm.
there's also a lot of fun, and so yeah, ways to test it out, ask to be able to, run, take on a small project and a small team with your company. If they're, hey, can I see this big project coming up? Can I take the lead on it and bring on a few other designers and see how that feels and see if I enjoy that? And it's going to be hard, but see, if you can, gel and find aspects that you like about it. Other things is mentorship. I've been doing
Hmm.
mentorship for, a handful of years for different organizations, and that really it helps you see, meet different folks and see how it is leading different folks and what ticks for them, and how they take feedback is it really depends on the person. And so the more different types of people you can work with, it gives you a better experience, and seeing if you like it and enjoy it. And I know ADP list is out there. I have signed up. I haven't fully actioned it. I'm excited to. But I heard that's a really great place to be a mentor and see. I mean, even if you've been in the field for a year, you can still be a mentor to someone breaking into the field, applying to their first job, and see if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a whole other conversation about the democratization of mentorship, at least in this industry, or actually any industry. And I would caution for folks who have the desire to mentor others, which is excellent. I think the more help, the better. But just kind of to be clear that some questions, if you don't know the answer, or if maybe it like it could be so subjective, and I'm afraid that as like all this, I guess, 1 year, less than 1 year experience mentors, it's a bit cautious or skeptical feeling that they may actually, I'm questioning if their advice may cause more harm than good. So that's kind of my concern on this. So as long as there's like clarity and really transparency that, hey, this was my experience that worked for me, I have no idea if this will work for like other type of the company or other even market because it's global, or your particular situation because you have a like slightly different background. So as long as there's like this honesty, I'm all for it. But yeah, just yeah.
Yeah, that's such good advice. You're so right. Even I've found myself in the past few years having, a mentor call and saying, I don't know. I'm not sure. Let me go away. I'll look this up and find some resources for you. Because you can't be, you can't specialize in all areas of the product. And so sometimes I just don't feel right giving out advice if I'm not 100% sure.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and it goes back to what you said about the imposter syndrome, right? So it's really just being, I guess, brave enough and self-conscious enough to be able to admit that like some parts actually I don't know, and I'm not an expert in this. So yeah, probably maybe connect with this other person who I talked to about this, or who I've heard or seen more experience in this. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's again about communication, really being transparent and open. I think that definitely would do good for both sides of this relationship.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's hear if you have any, I guess, red flags or pro tips from the interviewer's point of view. So, what really maybe stood out as a good example of when you're interviewing folks or reviewing their resume or portfolio, like do's and don'ts, kind of from your particular point of view and your particular experience?
Yeah. So one thing I found that was so interesting when I was interviewing, I was working with this recruiter, and right away they said, you get a full board full in of applications, and they said if there is not, we gave them a field to say, why they're interested in the role or the company. So, what we're trying to do is find out, do our values align? You do have similar interests. And I was so surprised when the recruiter said, "If it's not filled out, we archive it right away." I said, "Well, wait, there could be great candidates in there." No, if they don't take the time to fill it out, they're not really that invested. And so I was shocked. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but I was shocked. Like, we're archiving these tons of candidates that haven't filled that out. And so one thing to pass on is like, yes, I know candidates are applying to many jobs. I know that, the you have to apply to many to get to an interview, but please fill it out. It goes a long way. It might put you aside, even like give you 10 or 20% chance more to get through the door. So please fill that out. Um, you know, other than, from the application itself, having a resume that's really clear. I know having a graphic design background, at that time it was like, make the most beautiful, fancy, well-designed resume ever. Like, can something pop up and move and like whatever. It's not the case anymore. Times have changed. Yes, like we want to see that you're a good designer, but we'll see that from your portfolio. The most important thing is that your resume is clear and easy to read. I don't know. I imagine at Amazon, but a lot of these larger corporations actually use scanners, and so it's more important for your resume to be easily scanned through and words picked up than to be beautifully designed. Um, then portfolio could be like another massive long conversation, but 2 to 4 really solid projects. Even if you only have two, if they're solid, that's awesome. Don't add in a project if you don't feel confident in it and it's not really strong. Be ready to be able to talk about any of the projects in there, and share the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to know what went wrong in the project. No project's ever gone right. Like, tell me if something was behind, or uh, you know changes had to be made in development. I want to know technical constraints, short timeline, whatever it was. I know you didn't put out the most perfect design and it didn't get built, absolutely perfect. I want to know what you had to cut out of scope and all of that goodness. Um, and then in the interview process, that was a long time getting there, sorry. Uh, during the interview, be yourself. I know it's easy to be really nervous, but some folks pick up on nerves. They want to be able to pick up on, your personality because it's a collaborative process. Being a designer, they want to know who you are. If you're easy to work with, if you're friendly, um, they want to see the human element and the human side of you. And so, uh, yeah, be yourself. Come with good questions. I love getting grilled with good questions.
Could you give an example or maybe two of what a good question is for you?
Yeah. So for an interviewee to ask the interviewer,
Yeah.
I love when they ask about, the culture and a little bit deeper than that. How does the product manager view design and design thinking? What's that relationship like? What does a collaboration meeting between development, product, and design look like? How does the company value wellness? What are ways that they're valuing wellness? That tells you right there, should be able to list off a few different things like, benefits and things of that sort.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like these questions, and I agree. Like I love non-conventional, non just kind of the basic 10 questions. When it kind of shows their curiosity, like real curiosity, especially when they dive deeper into what are the examples of how company supports health and well-being or something like this. What kind of specific programs you have to do this and that, and it also shows their values as well, right? So it's almost kind of another data point to, and always maybe like not 100% reliable because they may be still pulling some questions from the internet, right? So without really generating these questions themselves, so that's still a risk. But it could be an additional indicator of like their values and alignment from like the values point of view
Mhm.
and the culture fit
Yeah.
if it's still a good term to use. Culture add, I think now
Yes.
it's the new one.
Yes. I should say also if they ask, is there opportunities for career development? They're keen. They want to keep learning and growing, and they're interested in that area. And so I love when they ask questions about career development.
Yeah, it shows that they want to stay and grow within the company or then with the team longer term than just 12 months and then bail. I think that's
Yeah.
definitely additional bonus point for many companies.
Yes.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about the design ops and almost like the not a one-on-one, but really the hands-on. Because from your experience, I'm sure you know a lot about that particular side of running a team, a design team. Why is it important, and what exactly does it mean?
Yeah, so this is so it's funny because design operations working in startups before, I mean, you don't have the luxury of having a design ops person, usually because the team is so small and so
Yeah.
scrappy and moving so fast. And so being able to document process and things of that sort rarely happens. And so I, coming on to Fullscript in the leadership role, talking with the director, trying to find out where we spend our time. And so, each of us have a specialization, whether that's exposure and, exposing, the great work that the design's doing within the company or externally outside of the company, or, is our focus around um, architecture and structure or, design systems, or is around design operations. We weren't really sure. Everyone's got a secret sauce, what they're really interested in. And so we were talking about what's your specialty? And
Mhm.
I explained, like I said, I really enjoy design process and implementing that and and bringing that into organizations and educating folks and championing the design process. I also have this project management DNA. I love being, organizing and planning and setting up agendas for meetings. And my dad's been a project manager, well, was with government for many years. And so I love all of that. Like, let's get into the scope. And I love working with PMs and we can bounce stuff off each other and prioritize and all of that goodness. Uh, the director's like, that's interesting. Okay. And so he's like, design operations. And I went, okay, something for me to research and learn about. And so I've been trying to get up to speed on everything around operations within larger organizations. And the more I read and learned, I'm like, this is stuff, like, I love this. This is amazing. Give me, like, right now I'm planning out all of our design meetings. So, team bonding meetings, exposure within the larger organization meetings, ways that we can push it along different initiatives, and things of that sort, right down to like file management and documentation of user research, like all of that good stuff. I get so excited about it. Like, cool, that's your special power. So I believe about 35% of my role is design operations and working with a product operations lead.
That sounds like actually quite a lot of additional responsibilities, and project management. It sounds like a big additional skill that can help you become a more effective design ops lead. I wonder if you could just summarize it like in I guess, an elevator pitch. What really design ops mean?
That's so tough. I would say
maybe maybe
finding,
maybe from the angle like what problem does it solve?
yeah, finding a way, finding processes or building processes to reduce cognitive load for the designers so that they can easily find things and things of that sort, as well as operational overhead and different ways to help with initiatives like exposure and team bonding and things of that sort. So processes and documentation that help those different initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Awesome.
Ask me again next week and I'll have a better, just as more as I keep learning, I'll have a better one for you.
Sounds good. And obviously, this is specific to Fullscript, where you're at right now. So yeah,
Yes.
it will be probably different even 1 month later when Fullscript evolves and learns from those new programs and mechanisms. That's totally cool. Awesome. Okay, so I think we covered all the questions for today. That the main points that I wanted. Maybe actually, do you have maybe 5 more minutes?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Okay, I really want to hear one more. So, going back to this conversation about the lead and senior and intermediate designers and like the management track versus IC track. From your definition, what makes a good team lead?
Yeah. A good team lead moves rocks out of the way so that team members can do what they need to do. So sometimes that's, going to a different pod and getting answers so that your team members can do what they need to do, like finding answers, finding tools, getting information, anything that they need in the moment. That could also be things like teaching small, lunch and learns on something that you're really interested in or know a lot about so that other folks can learn, and grow their skills, mentoring them, being there, being empathetic is a big part. Understanding, I think it's become even more prevalent, now with the pandemic and everyone working from home, being empathetic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what's going on in your life. If you had a bad sleep last night, I'd love to know because then I understand, where your headspace is. Maybe we're not going to tackle that hard problem or have that hard conversation today. Um, but knowing that sometimes hard conversations are important that leads need to have because that grows your team. compassionate, have those compassionate hard conversations. Uh, yeah. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I wonder, and just kind of follow up on this, the hard conversations. I wonder how do you really find the right balance between compassion and empathy and having those hard conversations? Because it sounds like it's almost the opposite sides of that. I mean, you can change the presentation style and just kind of the style of the communication, but it's still, or you're almost like masking the message and like masking, like, I mean, if we're talking about the same hard conversations, actually, let's start with what do you mean by hard conversations?
Yeah. So, say your project didn't go the right way, or didn't go out on time. Something wasn't completed on time. I mean, that's a hard conversation. You have to follow up and say, find out what happened, and how it could be rectified for next time so it doesn't happen again. Like maybe they needed a specific piece of information or a tool or something for next time. And so uh, have a compassionate conversation is like finding out what's going on. Maybe there's something going on in their life right now, and they're having a hard time. And then saying, being neutral and saying, this is what happened. It didn't go so well. How can we make sure it doesn't happen next time? What can we do? How can I help you? What can I do to be better at that? Um, it's a hard conversation, but doing it compassionately, like not chewing anyone out, and don't not doing it asynchronously. Like hop on the call, have a human to human conversation. Um, I mean, if you don't have those conversations, then it could happen again, and someone might not know. They might not know any better, and so that helps them learn and grow from those conversations.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. There are so many things that can go wrong. And I think the mindset of really learning from your mistakes and being willing to adjust even the process, or potentially devoting a bit more attention to some parts of the project in future, that can help you minimize the risks of these. And actually, on this risk topic, really even maybe adding a step in the process like project planning, to identify risks a bit more rigorously, so you can mitigate them and really kind of come up with strategies uh, to not make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, our director, he's really great at also adding in what learning opportunities are there? Like, what career development pieces is there? Is there a course? Like, maybe that's something we unveiled, that that's something that you need to advance in. Maybe user research isn't your strong suit. Maybe we can have a course, or maybe you could mentor under someone else who's really strong at it. And so we also adds in, where's the learning opportunity in this for us to expand, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's almost like, the many folks that I've heard who look at portfolios of candidates uh, find valuable when there is a section at the end, like after going through the whole case study, lessons learned, or maybe like things I would do differently next time, or like maybe actually I tried this method with this number of participants, and actually this didn't work at all. So next time I'm gonna do this a different way. So really, ability to analyze your your actions, and the kind of the connecting the actions and outcomes, and really kind of analyzing those gaps potentially between the two. I think it's a good skill for a designer to really learn, actually for any person to learn and grow. And yeah, not what's the term, step on the something twice.
I don't
No,
know.
no, it's
No,
probably from,
sorry.
probably from Russian. There's like a saying, like a proverb, but basically not repeating the same mistake twice.
Yeah,
If I
yeah,
convert it to the Canadian, the English
yeah.
world.
It's also a great way to show self-awareness as well.
Totally, and being able to identify those learning opportunities for yourself, um, at least from my point of view, it could be actually one of the factors that help you stand out in the interview process, right? So especially when you with the person through your portfolio and projects, and really being kind of critical of that you made some mistakes, because everybody does, and that you know what you would do next. So it's kind of really those like iterative approach to your method of working and even design process sometimes. Yeah, so I think it's definitely a good skill for designer.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. I loved it. It was really, really interesting to hear your story and hear the advice and like your takeaways from your career. It was super valuable. I really appreciate your time, and it was fun. I loved it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm so humbled to be able to do something like this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's almost like scaling up your mentoring ability and skills and advice, so more folks can learn from you instead of one-on-one conversation, which are still amazing, and I would highly encourage. But it's just harder to scale the impact this way. So this is like another channel how you can help the UX community. Speaking of which, if somebody wants to reach out to you, so you mentioned you're on ADP list, right, as a mentor, but hasn't started that yet.
Yes, I need to fully finish my sign up process. But folks can also reach out to me on LinkedIn at any time at Sarah Donaldson.
Sounds good, and I'll include the link in the notes. Well, that's it for today. Thanks, Sarah. This was amazing. I loved it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kirill. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and have a wonderful day.